My first introduction to you was through Pawn Stars. I
okay.
remember your episode specifically. That
Yes.
must have been, was that like 13, 12 years ago? Was it
Yeah,
10 years ago?
that was no, that wasn't that long ago.
Really?
It was actually the early part of 2016.
No, was
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
Why do I feel like that was forever
I know.
ago?
I saw that
Yeah.
episode as well. And that
Yeah,
didn't seem
doesn't it
too
feel like
long.
Pawn Stars was way longer ago? No?
You see, Pokemon Go came out in January, I think January of 2016, and that kind of
Drove up
put a
the
needle in the arm
Yeah.
of Pokemon, and then I started getting. See, I was, kind of known as King Pokemon for many years before that. I did many things and was a top eBayer and did a lot of things prior to that, but. The Pawn Stars episode, which was in 2016, just after the Pokemon Go craze, which lifted it. The Pawn Stars episode just lifted it out of sight.
So-
I mean, it brought the hobby back.
Let's talk about that episode for a
Yes,
second, because I didn't
sure.
fully explain it. When I remember watching your episode, you went into Pawn Stars and you were talking to Rick. Was it Rick?
Yes.
About selling your Charizards. And you wanted $500,000.
Yes.
For how many Charizards was that?
Okay. Do you want the whole story?
Yes.
Yes, please.
How do they reach out to you? How
Yes.
much can you say how much of that is like scripted and how much is,
100%. I will tell you the exact honest story about this.
tell us.
They
Okay.
did reach out to me in advance.
Okay.
Rick lives here in town. He's a neighbor of ours too.
Wow, is he really?
Yeah.
That would be
And,
crazy to meet Rick.
Yeah, and he has some
Wow.
connection to Pokemon, not just this
Really?
episode we did together, but he has some other connections, through Chumley in that, from the show.
Yeah.
Anyway, his producer did reach out to me and ask me, because Pokemon Go had lit such a fire under the hobby, they wanted to get a Pokemon segment on one of their episodes. And so they reached out to me and they had seen one of my listings that had those Charizards, and it was over 100 PSA 10s, different types, right? But all Charizards and all, trading TCG. And then there was maybe 20 or 25 Beckett's cards. So there's about 120 cards. And so they wanted me to bring those in and negotiate with Rick. They said, would I be interested in selling? And all I'm thinking about is, what is this going to do for the hobby? How big would this be? It's always been my focus there's more stories about the past having to do with this, but it's always been about lifting the hobby, even those recent things with Logan and that. And so, right away I said, oh, certainly, I'll do that. And I'll sell. Now, market for all those at the time might have been in the $400,000 range. At least as well as I could, figure it. A lot of mine were one of a kind, so it's a little hard to calculate those because there's no, comps, which you would understand in that. So I ended up asking for $500,000 with no intention of selling.
But if they offered
Yeah, would
five,
you have
you would have
accepted?
sold.
Great question. I would have been so obligated to sell. Now, that would have been top retail at the time.
Yeah.
That would have been the most that I could, which is why I set that number, because anything under that I could easily not accept. Had they come to me and said, okay, we're going to give you the $500,000, which I didn't expect,
Yeah.
I might have had to, but I also might have tried to find a way out.
Did you have to sign a contract going into it saying if they paid you your price, you're obligated, like a Shark Tank?
Yeah. No. I did have to sign a contract, but it didn't deal with that. Just dealt with being able to use my likeness and and that stuff. And so when he finally said that, he wasn't, he just didn't know what he would do with it. I mean, it's probably the biggest mistake Pawn Stars ever made. Something else, let me mention, you might know this, a lot of people don't. It's the second most viewed segment in the history of Pawn Stars.
Yeah.
They've had over 2,000 segments. The Pokemon episode, that Pokemon episode is the number 2 highest rated. There's over 12 million already on History
YouTube.
Channel.
Yeah,
Yep.
Well, on History Channel, then they had tons at the time.
What's the top
watched.
rated?
It's
I feel like that was the car. There's some car.
no,
no.
it's actually some coin, something that didn't deserve it.
All right, yeah.
Which we're catching up to. It's like 15 million, but it was 15 million to 10 million at one time on History Channel, and now we're 15 million to 13 million. So ours is going. We might catch that, but no, it was nothing, special. It was like a coin or something like that. But anyway, when he didn't do it, I was relieved because I knew we got the publicity for the hobby, and yet I didn't go through any type of embarrassment having to not accept his or later after the show telling him, Rick, I can't.
Yeah.
What